get started there now. I'll just get things ready there now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a mix of both, I suppose, showing you a few slides, just talking about the softwares and also doing a bit of a demo as well on the softwares as well. Okay. So before I get started, for anyone who doesn't know me, for all the new names that I can see on the screen here now, my name is Michael Brazel. I'm with SafeCare just under 4 years now, and I'm the Assistive Technology Specialist for SafeCare Technologies. So ourselves as a company, SafeCare Technologies, we are an assistive technology company, and we do operate in a few different areas. So we specialize in the AAC communication. So we work with Tobii Dynavox in this area. So we sell the communication devices, touch, switch, and eye gaze devices. And obviously, as you're aware, we're going through some of the eye tracking settings today, accessing your computer using Windows devices. So we also specialize in assistive technology, so things like switches, joysticks, and so on and so forth for access of computers and different types of keyboards as well, and also different types of simple switches and so on and so forth. We also specialize in multi-sensory, so we also would focus on the SHX system, which is a multi-sensory room system. It's a fully immersive system that you can actually step inside and immerse yourself within. We specialize in cognition products as well for scheduling and so on and so forth. So there's a few different areas that we work with there, and environmental control as well. So we specialize in different kind of areas such as controlling your windows, your doors, your blinds, and so on and so forth in your home. So these are some of the companies that we do work with at the moment. So you'll see the Tobii Dynavox in the center. So we work heavily with Tobii Dynavox. We work for the communication devices, for example, the touch and switch and eye gaze devices. We work with Readapt for mounting solutions, for example, wheelchair mounts, floor mounts, table mounts. We work with AbleNet and Praetorian as well for switches and so on and so forth. We work with BJ Live for the multi-sensory room system, so the SHX system, and also for some environmental control. And finally then as well, Abelia as well. We work with Abelia for the cognition products and also for environmental control as well. So today I'm going to cover 3 areas when it comes to accessing your computer. I'm going to focus more on 1 or 2 areas and just kind of briefly just go over the last one. So I'm going to focus mostly on the TD Control, and that's the main software for accessing your computer, for being able to use it for more than just your eye tracking softwares like TD Snap and Communicator 5. It's also a way of being able to access your computer for gaming, for socializing, for going onto social medias, for example, or for simple things like going on to the internet to go onto the newspapers, and even as well just doing work as well, like school work, you know, college work, and even just general work itself as well. Then we'll go through Gaze Viewer, and Gaze Viewer is a software that allows a user to be able, well, it actually allows the communication partner to be able to see where the eye gaze user is looking. So this is a great tool for someone who's on an emergent level of eye gaze, and you can actually monitor and see where they're looking on the screen at a particular point, whether it's a live view or whether you're recording it as well. And finally, we'll talk about eye tracking settings. And eye tracking settings are just basically the simple settings in order to calibrate and in order to position someone when using eye tracking for your computer. Okay, so firstly, I'll just go to TD Control. So you'll see here now TD Control. Some people might be familiar with this logo already. This is basically your blue logo with your kind of C, and this is your computer control. This is how you're going to control your computer. For this particular software, we're able to interact with and control your computer via eye tracking. It's designed then for people with conditions such as cerebral palsy, ALS, MND, and spinal cord injury who can't access their computers but want full independence basically when it comes to using their computer. You can navigate and control the Windows environment in a natural way, and just to obviously go through that. The softwares that I'm going through here now at the moment, they're only available on Windows devices. So later on, I think one of my colleagues later on towards the end of the webinar will actually show you or send you a link for the TD for the TD Pilot and so on and so forth. So accessing that through eye gaze. But today we're just specifically focusing on Windows devices. And finally, we'll stay connected. Basically, the control allows you to stay connected then via email and social medias, as I mentioned as well, and much, much more. So when I'm showing you the demo in a while anyway, you'll see all these particular features that I'm going to go through in a second. So you'll be able to see them in live view. But for now, we're just kind of going to go through them and just talk about them. So firstly, when using the control software, the TD Control, the trace is the most important part, I suppose, that you'll actually see. So When we turn on TD control and when we look around the screen, we'll have a trace. And as I look around the screen in a while, you'll see that this trace will follow where I'm looking. So from the trace, then basically, this is where you're looking and it pinpoints exactly where you are looking. Underneath the trace, we've got the activator. So the activator then is the part that actually selects what you're looking at. So for example, if I was looking at the Chrome app, what will happen then is I look at this little activator and that selects a screen, and this off-screen menu then will bring me to my next app, which is basically what I'm going to select. So this is basically, what is my next step? Am I double clicking to open it up? Am I right clicking to go into the additional menu settings? Or if it was opened up, am I scrolling, or am I left clicking, right clicking, dragging? Do I need to adjust my target? Do I need to open a keyboard to type in something, and so on and so forth? So I'll show you all those in a while anyway. So next up then, once we go into that menu, we have the interaction menu. And you'll see here the interaction menu has those options that I mentioned. That's that next step. What are we looking to do? Are we looking to double click? Are we looking to left click? Are we looking to scroll? Are we looking to, click and drag something? Or are we simply looking to just open up the keyboard and type something as well? So you'll also notice as well, in the center there, you have a black circle that says your chosen target. And you'll see this as well in a while. Your chosen target is when I select something, when I'm actually focused on a particular app. What happens is that target is pulled into the center, and this will actually reduce stress and anxiety as well for the eye gaze user. You can slow down the computer control as well. So you can actually read the menu as well. So you'll see that you've the different options here: double click, left click, scroll, and so on and so forth. So you can hide that guide or you can show that guide. And when we actually show the guide, it slows down that process. We're able to look around the screen, we're able to actually see what is my next step without actually having that stress of, the eye gaze selecting something. We can take a step back, have a look around, and then plan what our next move is then. So that's the interaction menu once we select an application. We've also got the off-screen menu, and the off-screen menu is basically your kind of settings. So for example, if I've already opened up TD control and I just want to go into the general settings, I look below the screen, and just below the eye tracker, below the screen, that will bring up this off-screen menu, and I can select the settings, and then I can go through the different settings within the software. Again, I'll go through them in a while for you as well. Here are some of the options as well. You'll see there, and when I show the guide, you've got the continuous left click, timeline, settings, sleep, quick calibrate, and pause gaze as well. So there's different options there that are available when you open up this setting. Then when we open up the settings within computer control, we have this particular area. This is where we change our activation. So we can change the activation time, the fixation time, and that's going back to that trace and that activator. We can change, how long we want that to appear, how long we want to fixate before we select it, and also how long, you want for that to dwell as well. The calibration then as well, that brings you through the eye tracking. So you can actually calibrate in here, but also position as well. And I'll talk about position in a little while more as well, as it is important. Positioning is the most important part of eye tracking. So once we have our calibration done, we need to be in a good position, which I'll talk about in a second. Then the next step is the keyboard. So the keyboard, then we just have a few little additional settings that we can change within the keyboard. Maybe it's language and so on and so forth. And then we have general settings. So just the general settings of the eye tracking as well. Then we have the track status box, and the track status box, as I mentioned, that's for your positioning. So when we are positioning someone on front of a eye gaze device, we need to just keep in mind two specific main things. And these are the two white dots in the center are our eyes, and that's where we're looking on the screen. So we need to have them as close as we can get them to the center of that black box. And once they're in the center of that black box, that's quite a good position to be in. The next step is on the right hand side, you'll see there's a colored bar. The colored bar itself, that will actually go up and down depending on the distance that I am from the device itself. So if I move back too far, what will happen is the arrow will go up. If I move in too close, the arrow will go down. So what we want to do here is we want to have that arrow as close as we can get it to the green section in the center of that colored line. So to get that, you have to roughly be between 55 to 90 centimeters away from the device, and that will be your optimum distance then as well. So some users might be 60, some might have to be 80 centimeters. It really does depend on each particular user. But the main two things to, I suppose, consider when you're using that track status box is two white dots in the center, an arrow as close as we can get to the green section in the middle. Okay, So what I'm going to do now, first of all, is I'll go through the other softwares in a while, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually share my screen of the iSeries device that I have here, and I'm just going to show you what that actual software would look like, the TD control. So just bear with me now. Just need to stop sharing this device. Start sharing here. Okay. Yep, so hopefully then you should see the screen. So I'm on the desktop of the iGaze device. Okay, so when we want to open up TD control, okay, so we can set it for different things. So we can set it so that it opens up automatically when the computer comes on, or we can set it so that when we leave a specific software, that it comes on automatically as well. In this case now, though, for the purpose of the webinar, I'm just going to double click on it just to open it up here now. So I'm just going to tap on TD control. So just to show you there now, that's what I'm going to move into the center. You'll see it moving around. That is your TD control. So I'm just going to double click on that one, and that's going to open up my software. So you'll see TD control opens up in the center of the screen. Straight away, you've got that trace. So you can see when I'm looking around, you've got that trace. So everywhere I look, that follows my eyes. Okay. So what I'm going to do first of all, okay, is I'm actually going to go in and I'm going to just make sure my position is correct. Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, positioning and calibration is the most important thing. So I'm just going to quickly go down and have a look on my off-screen menu. So I'm going to have a look down below the screen. So I'm just going to close that, look below my screen, and I'm going to look at the three dots that popped up in the center of the screen. And again, I'm just going to hide the guide, or sorry, show my guide. So over on the right-hand side, you have hide guide at the moment, okay? So hide guide will allow me then to hide all the options that are here. So quick calibrate settings, notepad. It'll hide the words, and I'll be able to select what I want to select. So this particular area, when I'm looking around, it's not going to select anything. It just gives me the option to be able to have a look around. And I know now in this case, I need to have a look at the settings, which is down the bottom. So for that, I need to go back to the right-hand side, and I need to look at hide guide, and I need to look at the settings down the bottom, and I need to open my settings up there. Okay, and it shows that screen that I showed you a while ago, the activation, the calibration, the keyboard, and the general settings, and so on and so forth. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into the second option, which is calibration. Just going to have a look at calibration. And here we have that calibration screen. So you'll see here now I've got the track status box on the right-hand side, the one I showed you, the black box with your two white dots, which are your eyes, and the arrow, which is the colored line, and you'll see the arrows in the center. So I'm just going to make sure, again, slightly off. So I'm just going to adjust a little bit, just relax, and just go into the center. And you'll see here now I have quite a good position. So I'm just going to go into test and calibrate. And here I have an accuracy tool where I can test, is my eye gaze really accurate? Okay. And you can see it's quite accurate here at the moment. It's slightly off. But what I might need to do is just calibrate. So I can look at the calibrator on the bottom left-hand corner, and I can quickly go into calibrate. So as an eye gaze user, I'm actually able to do all this calibration myself and positioning myself as well. So I can actually see am I in the right position, or do things need to be adjusted? Okay. So that's my calibration done there now. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you the software, just show you around. So again, the track status box, I'm in the center, so I'm quite good. I'm going to have a look at close and just close out of that, and just close out of this software. So I'm back to the desktop and I'm just looking around again. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into Microsoft Edge on the left-hand side. Okay. So as I mentioned, as I want to go into something, if I want to control my computer, I need to look at my trace. Okay. So I look at my trace and the circle moves around, and I fixate and I look at the little activation, and then I have the options. So again, I'm going to go over to the right hand side to the eye just to show the guide, just to slow things down, and we're back into that interaction menu. Here I have the option to scroll, left click, double click, adjust my target, open a keyboard, click and drag, right click. Now I quickly want to show you actually that I'm going to go back and I'm going to show you the first option down the bottom left hand corner, and that's adjust target. So what happens, as I mentioned earlier, is that when I look at a particular app, it opens up, it pulls it into the center of my screen. So you'll see Microsoft is in the center of the screen. So that reduces that stress and that fatigue of me looking around the screen so much more. So there can be a time when I look and I fixate on something, but I actually am slightly off. I'm missing it and I'm not able to select it. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So let's have a look again at Microsoft Edge. But this time I'm not going to get it exactly bang on. So I'm just going to have a look above it. Okay, and then look at the fixation. So you'll see I haven't got my target exactly on, just hide that guide again, or show the guide, exactly on Microsoft Edge. What I can do as an eye gaze user is I don't have to go back and try it again. I can just simply adjust my target by going down to that adjust target feature. So hide guide, adjust target, and then I can look around again, focus on that, and then I'll just show my guide again. So again, I need to figure out what my next step is. This time it's a double click because I want to open it up. So I'm going to hide my guide again, double click, and that opens up my internet. And this allows me then to go onto my internet, and I can go up to the top of the browser bar, look at my activation, look at my keyboard. I can then type in, I'll just type in independent. Okay. So I'm just typing in independent.ie, and then I can press enter to search. And now I'm on the Independent. So now I have that option to be able to read the newspaper, for example. So again, I might want to read the newspaper, but how do I scroll down? Again, I need to open up that interaction menu. So looking anywhere on the screen at all, looking at my fixation. Then what in this case I'm going to do is show the guide again, and you'll see scroll is at the top. So I'm going to select scroll. So I just hide the guide, select scroll. And now as I look down the screen, it scrolls for me. Okay. So if I'm happy, we'll say, for example, I just need to go down here a little bit more. I'll actually go up. And what I want to do is select that article, actually. So I just need to go back up. Look at the X on the right. Look at the article. Fixate. Click. That opens up my article. And scroll. I can stop. And what I can do now is, while I look around the screen, you still see the traces there. Now, that might be annoying for someone if they're reading. So what I can do is I can look below the screen. And when I look below, you'll see a pause option. Look at pause. And now that's paused the eye gaze. So I can actually take a step back as an eye gaze user, relax, read what I need to read. And when I'm ready again, when I've read that particular area, look below the screen, press play, and then the trace comes back up as well. Okay, so that's basically just kind of just navigating around and using the interaction menu. But also I just want to show you, if I go into the settings, so I'm going to look below, and you've also got the three yellow dots in the center. Again, I'm going to show the guide. And this particular area, then we have a notepad, we have the settings, and that's the settings I showed you a few minutes ago. As an eye gaze user, I can go to quick calibrate. I can also put my device to sleep if I'm not using it for a while. I can copy, cut, and paste. So if there's a particular, that writing I saw a second ago, if I wanted to copy that into a document, again, I can do that. Open up my Word document and then copy it in, and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to hide the guide again. I'm going to go back. And I just want to show you as well. So when I look below the screen, that menu that pops up again, we have a few different options here, okay? So I'm going to show that guide. And here we've got keyboard, switcher, dashboard, pause, gaze, and modes. So just quickly as well, within modes, we are on, we're not on a simplified mode. There is another version which is called simplified mode, and that's for someone who's just using, who's an emergent level. They're just basically using it for cause and effect. We might need to change that to a simplified mode for specific softwares. So that's where you can change that. You can change that to specific modes. But in this case, here we're just showing you the other settings. And what I can show you is Switcher, okay? So Switcher is a particular, application by Tobii Dynavox. And within Switcher, I can simply very easily switch between things like TD Control, Communicator 5, TD Snap, Magic Eye FX, and also as well, your own ones as well. So you can save in your own web pages or your own applications as well. So I can hide the guide, look at Switcher, and here are some of the other options I can look at then. So look at Switcher, and that opens up the Switcher, and I can open up the other softwares then. Yep, so here we have the switcher. So here we have that article I was just reading. Then we have meetings, and down the bottom, TD Control, Browse, Communicator 5, Snap, and Magic Eye FX. Okay, so again, I'm going to take a step back here now again, and I'm just going to go back down here, and I'm just going to look at the menu down below, and I'm going to hide that guide. Okay, so again, we're paused, we're looking at that guide again. And again, if I just quickly wanted to go into a keyboard, for example, if I had opened up a Word document, you see that keyboard is there as well. So I can quickly start typing if I wanted to as well in that Microsoft Word document as well, or Excel, or so be it, if I was doing some work, for example. Okay, so hide that guide again and back to the settings. I'm just going to hide that guide or show the guide. And again, we're back into the dashboard. Okay, so I just want to show you those settings now as well. Just showed you the calibration side. I also want to show you the activation, because when you see me looking at the device itself, you can see that it actually might be a little fast. Okay, so the dwell itself goes around very, very fast. We can slow that down. So that, again, depending on the eye gaze user, you can speed that up or slow that down as well. So obviously I'm used to using these eye gaze devices, so the fast dwell suits me fine. But then if I needed to, if I was new to something like eye gaze, I might need to slow it down so I can really kind of focus and say, this is what I want to select, and so on and so forth. So hide the guide, down to the settings, and now we're into this particular section here. So we've got activation, calibration, keyboard, and if I go across, I've got customization, device in general. So customization is just where I would change that mode to simplified if I needed to. Device settings are just simple device settings. So if I pop in here, it's just the particular iSeries device that I'm using. It has the adaptive buttons, and these particular buttons I can use as an eye gaze user, or they can be used as touch as well. So we can select what we want them to do. So is the function to open up a specific app, for example. Okay, going back over to the left, back over to activation, as I just mentioned. Activation here, I can change the fixation time, the dwell times, and so on and so forth. So I can increase the dwell time. So I can look at the plus, and that increases it for me. And you see, as I'm increasing that, the actual dwell itself is getting slower. So now I'll actually have to look at a button longer for me to be able to select something. So I'll just go back, okay? And you'll see now, it takes a little longer when I'm looking at something. The calibration, again, is in here. I can do things like tracking both eyes, left eye and right eye. And then the keyboard settings. Here I have different things like dwell times on the keyboard and adaptive dwell speeds and gaze and switch and so on and so forth. Okay, so that is TD control. Again, I can show you more of that in a while. I just want to move on to the other softwares just to show you now next as well. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly stop sharing that one, and I'm going to share my other slides again. Okay, so share screen. Okay. So hopefully then you can see that track status box screen there now again. Okay. So on to the next software. So the next software I wanted to talk to you about was called Gaze Viewer. And Gaze Viewer is a very good tool. It's actually been around for quite a number of years now. But Gaze Viewer is a fantastic tool for someone who's on an emergent level, or even if you're just doing simple choice making, maybe 1 or 2, or even a 2x2 grid as well. On it could be TD Snap, or it could even be what I've seen as well people do is with PowerPoints as well. If you're trying to get someone to engage with the screen and you have a PowerPoint and maybe there's different shapes on that PowerPoint, just to engage and actually see as someone looking at a screen. So what this particular software does is it basically records data from any application at all. So you can open up any application you want when you're using Gaze Viewer. Gaze Viewer runs in the background and it records the data from the screen. So it's like a screen share, but it's recording all the data from where the eye gaze user is looking. Within the software as well, it helps you basically understand the physical and cognitive abilities of someone. And you can save all these results as well. And basically you can save them as images or videos, and basically you'll be able to track and assess over a specific time then as well. So you'll see here now on the bottom right-hand corner, that is basically how the software opens up. So we've got things like record gaze and sound, record gaze only, turn on live gaze, and settings. Okay, so record gaze and sound basically means that if I'm there as a communication partner or a therapist, and I'm basically in a scene where I'm doing an assessment, what I can do is I can ask that eye gaze user to maybe look up to the top left of the screen or look up to the top right. And what it's doing is, if I'm recording gaze and sound, is it's recording my voice as I say look up to the right, and it's recording if the eye gaze user is looking up to the right then as well. So seeing is that attention there for the particular activity that you're doing. You've also got just the record gaze only option, which is basically just where is the eye gaze user looking. And finally, then you've got the live tracking as well. So you can actually see in real time. So the slide here that you see here at the moment, we've got data recorded includes heat, map, and gaze point. Okay, so the data recorded includes heat map and gaze plot. What that means basically is we've got these numbers that are appearing across the screen. And as someone looks at the screen, you'll see that they can actually, the longer they look at a specific area, you'll see that you've got the heat map, and the darker the color grows, the longer the person is looking at the screen, and also the numbers as well. So the longer someone is looking at the screen, the higher the number it goes as well. And then underneath that as well, you've got these little orange dots, and that's your live gaze. So if I wanted to, if I was in an assessment as well, I kind of want to see where the person is looking at in that live setting. What I can do is I can go to live gaze and I can look at where that eye gaze user is looking at in real time then as well. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go back over and I'm going to share my screen now as well. So just bear with me a second. And you'll see there now as well the gaze viewer settings. Just going to stop sharing on this one, and I'm going to start sharing on the screen. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen there now again. So the TD control software is still open, so I'm just going to close that for a second. Okay, and exit. So what I'm going to open up here now is I'm going to open up the Gaze Viewer software. So we're at the desktop again, and as you saw there a second ago, the Gaze Viewer software is that yellow icon. So again, it's that one that I have over in the corner that I'm moving around at the moment. I'm just going to drag it back there again on the bottom right-hand corner. So I'm going to open up that software. And you'll see here that menu that I just mentioned a while ago. So again, we can record gaze and sound, we can record gaze only, we can turn on live gaze, and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to simply show you the first option, which is turn on live gaze. So if I turn on live gaze, straight away we've got those orange dots moving across the screen. So you'll see them in the center, moving over to the left by Boardmaker, over to the right. So wherever I'm looking on the screen, we've got that live gaze. So I don't necessarily have to record it. Maybe I just want to see in that particular instance, is the eye gaze user engaging with a specific activity, or so on and so forth. So again, we can have that live gaze on for where the eye gaze user is looking. The other option then is to record gaze only or record gaze and sound. So I'm just going to select record gaze only first of all. Okay, and that now is just recording in the background. So I'm just going to minimize that screen, and I'm just going to go into the internet, and I'm just going to go on to YouTube. Okay, just going to open up a video just about puppies. Okay, so just open up the first one here now. Now I have the sound off because it will interrupt with the webinar itself, but I just want to show you anyway, just in relation to just the gaze itself, what it will look like. Okay. Skip try. So obviously we're seeing puppies here now on the screen. Okay, now I have the live gaze on, so I'm actually going to go back and I'm going to turn that off because I don't want to have live gaze on, because that sometimes might interfere as well. So we'll turn that off, turn that back on. Oh, sorry, that back to the internet, back to my puppies. Here we go. Okay, so as we're looking at our puppies here now you can't see anything, you don't know where I'm looking at the moment. Okay, so obviously I'm looking at my screen, looking at the puppy just rocking. Again, there's another puppy. Okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back. I've had a look and I've, trying to see is, I'm going to see now, was the eye gaze user engaging? What is their motivating factor? Do they like this video about puppies? And so on and so forth. So I'm now going to go back to my Gaze Viewer software, and I'm just going to simply go to stop recording at the top left. So stop recording, and straight away you see now here that there's loads of points, okay? And there's a heat map as well, okay? So in this particular option, you'll see up the top corner, there's two orange buttons. I can turn off the heat map if I didn't want to use the heat map, or I can turn off the plot gaze as well, or the gaze plot, which is your numbers if I didn't want to use that. Let's say I just want to focus on the heat map, okay? So this is everywhere that I was looking on the screen. So what I can do now is I can play the animation, okay? Skip ahead of it. Okay, and what I can do here as well is I can actually crop it as well. So I can actually delete specific parts of the video. If maybe at the start I was just trying to go through the settings like this, I can delete those particular parts. and just have the actual part that I wanted to, which is your video about the puppies. So you'll see here now in a second. We'll just stop animation. And here we have the play animation again. Sorry, I can actually crop that. Stop, crop it over. Sorry, and yeah, we'll go from here. So I can press play, and now it's going to see where I was engaging when I was looking at that video, for example. Okay, so you can see I was engaging with the puppies' faces. Here again, I was looking down at the faces, looking at the puppy's paws, engaging with the movement, and again, looking at the puppy's face again here as he was eating. So you'll see as well, as puppies are moving around, you might be engaged and looking around the screen, following where they're moving as well. For example, this guy swimming, now we stopped it before that, but if he was swimming across the pool, we can then see where he was, or where the eye gaze user was looking, were they engaging with the movement of the puppy, for example. Okay, so that particular software, then you can see from the top, I can save a specific image. So if there's a specific part of it, I'm like, oh, they were engaging really, really well. We want to save this for an assessment purpose. We can save that image. And of course, we can save the full video as well. And as you can see there, I cropped it as well halfway. So you can crop that video as well. So I'm just going to close that. Close. Okay, so that's just Gaze Viewer. So I'm just going to jump back now again to the software and just finally go through the eye tracking settings then for you. So eye tracking settings is very simply just how you can calibrate and how you can position as well. So eye tracking settings is not if we're using it as a computer as well. So I showed you TD control and you can calibrate in that, but eye tracking settings is if you're using other softwares like TD Snap or Communicator 5 as well, where you're able to use accessible apps like Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I'm just going into that there now. Just while I do that as well, I just want to check the Q&A section. Yeah. Has me any questions, that's okay, perfect. So just screen share again. So some people might be familiar as well just from using our softwares previously as well. Eye tracking settings was previously known as Gaze Point, and you might have also heard of Gaze Interaction settings as well. So there's been a few variations. Basically, it's been upgraded over previous years, just I suppose with the new devices and new developments in the software as well. So it looks very similar to what it previously looked like. It's just a new name and so on and so forth. So this is what it looks like, eye tracking settings. It's a green icon with a white eye and a Windows sign in the middle of it as well. So this software as well allows you to be able to access those softwares, as I mentioned, like TD Snap, Communicator 5, and so on and so forth. It basically gives you that calibration and that positioning for it to be able to access those softwares. So as I mentioned, you can calibrate the user's eyes using this software. We can test as well. So like the accuracy tool I showed you a while ago in TD Control, you can also use this tool within the eye tracking settings, and you can also customize the settings as well for anyone who has, for different physical and cognitive abilities as well. So we can do, again, we can go back to the whole tracking one eye, tracking left or right, and tracking both eyes as well. And we can, for the actual calibration as well, to make it more motivating for a particular user, we can change around the settings within it as well. So the white dot might be a bit too boring. We might need to use maybe a donkey or a cow or a pig, or even an image that they like, for example, a family member, an image of them, or even something like Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse, Peppa Pig. You can actually use any photo you want. You just need to download it onto the computer and upload it onto the software. Again, as I mentioned, the track status box, that's within that software as well. So the most important thing when eye tracking is, obviously we'll do our calibration at the start, and that's the most important thing. But then following after that, on a daily basis, or even it could be, a few times daily, the user might move away from the device, or the device might be moved away from the user. So we'll need to do that positioning. So we just need to make sure that the eye gaze user is in the right position when using the device. So again, that's just going a bit into the track status box. Looking, are the two white dots in the center? Are they your eyes in the center? And then the arrow on the right, is it close as we can get it to the green section? Roughly, again, between 55 to 90 centimeters, as I mentioned. Okay, so I'm just going to jump back over again to the software just to show you that there now. So just going to minimize these. Okay, here. Okay, so hopefully again, then you should see my screen. So that's the desktop again. So again, we're going back down to the right-hand corner again. So you'll see we've also got eye tracking settings down there. So you see that's the green icon with the white eye. So again, I'm going to open that one up. Okay, and straight away we have this particular screen and we have our track status box. Again, we can do things like control, or if it's someone's using just their left eye, their right eye, or both eyes. And here we've got the screen for customization. So again, I'm just going to look at the screen and you'll see the 2 white dots are in the center, and I'm as close as I can get to the green bar on the center of the screen. Okay, so again, down the bottom of the screen, you'll see customize and calibrate. I can calibrate here and that'll open up the calibration. My dots will appear across the screen and I can calibrate, but I can also go into customize. So if I look at customize, within customize here now, this is where we can change it. So for someone who's on an emergent level, we might just have a 1 or 2 or even a 5-point calibration depending. But the more points you use in a calibration setting, the more accurate the eye tracking will be. So for example, if we're using someone who's using communication and they're on an 8x10 grid, 80 symbols, we might want to use a 9-point calibration, because if we're only using a 2-point calibration or a 1-point calibration, the accuracy wouldn't be as good. So we need, the more points we have, the more accurate it will be. You can change the stimulus, as I mentioned. So again, I can go into browse here and I can change the stimulus to some of these options that are here. But again, as I mentioned, I can download an image from the internet. I can use that image just by uploading it here and then changing it. So I'm just going to change it to the cow, for example. Here we have the cow. I can change the background as well. So sometimes you might find that, you might have someone who might have a visual impairment. So you could be using TD Snap for software communication purposes, and you might need to use high contrast symbols. So in this case, you might need to use a black background and very bright, stimulus so that they can see the stimulus better. So again, you can select your color here. I can select my color and press OK. Here, then we can change the stimulus speed. So how fast does the stimulus go across the screen when we're doing our calibration, and also the size of the stimulus. So we can have it small, medium, or large when it's going across. So I'm just going to do a 2-point calibration, okay? In this particular instance, I can go down to close, and then I can go to calibrate. I'm about to calibrate, so I'll just press yes. Okay, and there's my calibration done. So I have 2 grade points there then on the screen, as you can see. Okay, so that's basically the calibration of the eye tracking settings. So I'm going to close out of that. Okay, and close out of that. I'm just going to stop sharing and go back to my slides. So that's pretty much the 3 softwares that I wanted to go through with you today. So I'm just going to go back here now, finally, and just go to share my screen. Go back into my slides. So as I mentioned a few seconds ago there, these are just for Windows devices. So those 3 softwares are if you're using a Windows device. So these are the 3 Windows devices that in the Tobii Dynavox range. We've got the SC EyeLight, and that is basically your Surface Pro with your eye tracker. We have that's bundled, and it comes with Communicator 5 and TD Snap. We've also got the iSeries 13 and 16-inch. So these are the 13-inch size or the 16-inch size, and this is your kind of dedicated communication eye gaze device. This is an all-in-one device. You'll see the eye trackers built into it. We've got adaptive buttons and so on and so forth. We do have other webinars on that particular device, but if you have any questions about that device as well, just get in contact. And finally, then you've got the PCI tracker. So the PCI tracker itself, it's an eye tracker that you can plug into any Windows device, Windows 10, and basically it works on any laptops, any Surface Pros. Anything that has a Windows platform, basically, you can plug that into once it's Windows 10 and above, and then that will work away as an eye tracker. You just download their softwares, and again, it gives you that freedom to be able to access your computer then. So if you have someone, for example, in a school setting or a college setting that already has a Windows device, for example, it's just a case of getting your eye tracker. You just basically get magnets with it. You can stick it onto the bottom of the screen. Once that's attached, then they can control the whole computer with their eyes then.